You're listening to Rikki and Jimmy on Relationships, the show where we uncover the thoughts and behaviors that are sabotaging your relationship and what you can do about it. Jimmy and I are passionate about sharing the ways that imperfect partners like you and I can shift unhealthy relational dynamics and create closeness. So welcome. Drop your defenses and open your heart, eyes, and ears. Let's learn how to be the best partner we can be together.
All right, welcome back. We're so excited that you're here with us today. We are going to talk about something that I think is really important, and I think a lot of people struggle with a version of this, even if they're not in this relationship right now. They've potentially been in a past relationship that shared these characteristics, and they might not have had words around it. We're going to talk about how to know if you're in a codependent relationship opposed to a interdependent relationship, and what to do about it.
Yeah, one thing that's tough about identifying codependency too is that our popular music and movies and books really romanticize the idea of an overdependence on another person or a relationship. We tend to hail that as like the ultimate love. And so it gets hard to recognize. My audience of anxious attachers on Instagram particularly seems to have an impossible time telling, like, is it okay for me to want this thing? Is it okay that I do this? Is it okay to ask for this? So that's the kind of thing we're going to be addressing today.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you brought up those types of movies and books. They really do place an overimportance on if you're not like completely dependent on each other, or if you're not unhealthily just enmeshed in this relationship, then are you even in love? Like, are you?
Totally.
I don't think about that enough, but that you're so right.
We did look up the dry, boring definition of codependency for you guys. The Oxford Dictionary says it's an excessive emotional or psychological reliance on a partner, typically one who requires support on account of illness or addiction. That's the actual definition. But in the relationship realm, codependency is really more of an over-focus on you at the expense of me. That's what we'll be talking about today.
Yeah, I think this term came about, maybe it was in like the 60s or 70s. Correct me if I'm wrong, if you did any reading on this, but it really came about in reference to alcoholism.
Totally. Yes. Remember? I don't know the time frame, but for sure, that's when it started popping up. It was talking about family members who were supporting an alcoholic or enabling their problem by helping them excessively or taking care of them to a point that they didn't have any personality left anymore. It was just them managing an alcoholic and the addiction. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And anybody who struggled with a partner that struggles with an addiction, I bet that can get really gray, like where you care deeply about this person, you love them, you want to have the best relationship possible, but they're doing something that's just actively destroying their lives. And they might be actively doing things that destroy the relationship as well. But in the case of like alcoholism, it's so easy to think, well, I'll just pick them up from the bar, even though it's midnight and they are drunk again. And, it's so easy for us to just give and give so much of ourselves in service to this person who we love. But what we forget is that like we can so easily take on responsibility for their actions. Well, I'll just do this. I'll just walk on these eggshells because they're drunk and it's not them, and they're going to get help eventually, or when the stress of life calms down, they have a plan to get help, or whatever the case may be. It's so easy to just continue to give of ourselves and not hold them accountable.
Yeah, that's where we get the term enabling too, where when we take on so much of the responsibility for somebody else, it helps them to be lazy, or it kind of almost keeps them down, because then they don't have to do anything about an issue, right?
Right.
I don't have any expertise at all in addiction or alcoholism, or I haven't read up on that. Right. So today we want to say the codependency that we're talking about is just more of the relationship dynamic stuff, not so much addiction. So if you're here listening to the podcast today, hoping for help with a partner who's legitimately struggling with substance abuse or addiction, this is not the episode for you. I don't think this is, we're talking about romantic relationships, but it is good for us to talk about where the term came from. So thanks, Jimmy. Cause I think people do maybe get that tangled up. Like if their relationship doesn't look like the very intense struggle of taking care of an alcoholic, they're like, oh, okay, no, everything's fine. This isn't codependent. When actually codependency can creep into pretty normal relationships if we're not careful.
Big time. There's a lot of overlap. Like just because you're not dealing with a partner that struggles with addiction doesn't mean that you're not in danger of at least today's definition of a codependent relationship, which is exactly what you said, which is where I put my needs on the back burner and I take care of you and prioritize you. And oftentimes we do that for a good reason. We do that because, well, we're scared of what would happen if we didn't. Maybe they would leave. Maybe they would find someone else. Maybe that would start fights or whatever the case may be. Sometimes it's just easier to take on extra responsibility, including managing their own feelings or caretaking for them or whatever the case may be, at the expense of our own needs. But the problem is that always comes at a cost and eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the best things that I heard about codependency that really helped me was the idea that if you're acting out of fear, if you're acting out of fear, that may be coming from a codependent place instead of acting from your values or things that are important to you or things that are legitimately good for both you and your partner. I try to keep that in mind. In complete transparency, I want to say codependency is probably one of my biggest struggles in my relationship because that was always my biggest default move was I'm going to take the L. I'm going to lose this argument every time if it keeps the peace. That probably was one of the major factors in my divorce back in the day. But I still feel echoes of that issue in my current relationship, which is very healthy. It feels very good, but I do see myself sacrificing things that in retrospect, I probably shouldn't.
Yeah, no, I'm the exact same way. I think that we could commiserate on that very easily. Should we go over some characteristics of people that are maybe prone to falling into codependent relationships? Or where did you see this? Where did you see this going?
No, that's a great place to start. Great place to start. If any of the online content around people pleasing resonates with you at all, you might have some codependency in your relationship. That would be a good place to start.
Yeah, people pleasing is a fantastic way to start. If you're if you're talking about at risk for codependent relationships, people pleasing really gets has like such a positive connotation. I mean, maybe not nowadays.
I love making people happy.
I just love who doesn't love pleasing people? I get that, but the problem with people pleasers, what you have to be very careful of is like, well, one, are you giving with a expectation of something in return, which has its own caveat because, like, of course, when we give to someone, especially an intimate partner, it's not that we like demand that they return the favor, but like it makes sense if you're giving and you want them to also be nice to you. Like that makes sense. Yeah. Like I'm not giving to you completely not caring about how you treat me afterwards. Like obviously I would prefer to you to do the same. Like I thought we're supposed to treat each other the way we want to be treated. Right. So it makes sense if you're giving with the hope that someone will, but there's a big difference between, sometimes people will give, but there's a little bit more of a manipulative tone to it where it's like, I'm giving to you with this expectation and I will bring that up like, because, hey, like I do this for you. Why aren't you doing this for me? Well, that's not really giving, from a place of love. So
totally. I wanted to dedicate at least part of this episode to talking about the fact that giving in a relationship is a wonderful thing. Because I think sometimes when content talks about codependency, too much of it promotes that staunch individual independence, right? Like you should just get all your needs met on your own side, stop giving to people. And that's awful. I hope that we throw a lot of nuance into this episode, because I personally don't want to be in a relationship where both people aren't very giving. Giving is a wonderful thing. Like Jimmy just said, giving can get a little sticky because sometimes we're giving with very specific expectations of what we want in return. And that's rough. But giving just to give in a relationship, you find a relationship where both people are doing that constantly. That's like the most beautiful thing you can think of for a romantic relationship.
Yeah, I love that. I get so hurt when not hurt, but like it like makes me twerk, when somebody's like, when someone's like, you just need to meet all your own needs or something. And I was like, what does that even mean? I'm like, I know what you mean, but like, why are you in a relationship? I'm just confused. Like, what is your relationship supposed to bring to your life? Well, I'm in this relationship because like I want some sort of commitment or something like that. Well, that's a need. Like you can't meet that need yourself. If you clearly needed something else in your life, or you would have just stayed single forever. Totally. So like, I just don't get it when people are, you just have to meet all of your own needs. Absolutely. You should meet some of your needs, but it's also not weak or insecure to admit that like, there's some needs I can't meet on my own, like emotional intimacy with my partner. I can't meet that need. Like, I don't know. It's just silly.
No, you nailed it. The low hanging fruit there is sexual intimacy. Can't meet that need on my own. That's something that I need my partner to also partake in. But like what you just said, the emotional intimacy is also not necessarily something that I can entirely meet on my own either. Right. So
and we've done episodes on how important meeting some of your own needs, like and I'm sure that plays into a role into this conversation, because if you struggle with people pleasing, you might also struggle with prioritizing other people's needs above your own. You might even struggle with not even knowing your own needs, because it feels very guilty and it feels very selfish to even talk about your needs. So if that was you, I encourage you to go listen to we've done a couple episodes on how important needs are in a relationship and what needs are that you should be getting within your relationship. And that would be really helpful.
Yeah. And if you're feeling lazy and you don't want to go back combing through old episodes of Rikki and Jimmy, I found journaling to be totally indispensable when it came to figuring out what my needs were. My favorite prompt that I would give myself was, what would I want if I were single? Which is the only way that I could even dig through my brain and figure that stuff out. Because when I put another person standing in the room, I had trouble going there. But if I imagined myself single, it was much easier for me to think about what I truly wanted in a situation.
Yeah. And I think that there's so many people that struggle with those, especially those two things that we just talked about: people pleasing, and then putting other people's needs above their own. I think that we both probably still struggle with that, and it's not like we can't do it. Like we're going to get to like what we're supposed to do instead. We're still doing those things, but it's really hard to change your default. And sometimes your default's just like, my default is to, like you said, take the L. Let's not have conflict about this. I'll just put your needs above my own. But we really do ourselves a disservice when we do that consistently.
Yeah. Let's also remember that we came about that strategy, honestly, probably as kids. We probably had parents who didn't take our requests very well. And our strategy for not feeling cruddy about that was to just be the good child who didn't need anything, or be the very helpful child. And I don't know about you, Jimmy, but I'm inching up on 40. And if it took me 40 years to build that as a habit, it's probably going to take me a while to unlearn that habit or to create some new ones that are a little more helpful.
I love that. Yeah. You have to give yourself grace and compassion in this journey. Another one that I would throw out is, so we just talked about sometimes you don't even know what your needs are, which is extremely important. How do you expect to have and I'm talking to myself, how do you expect to have a healthy relationship with someone if you don't even know what you need to feel valued and prioritized and safe in this relationship? You don't even know. And so often we don't know because we didn't have great models growing up. And maybe your parents had maybe their relationship was abusive. Maybe they yelled at each other all the time during conflict, or maybe they had just this very tumultuous relationship.
Or codependent. Maybe your parents had a very codependent relationship, and that's your model. Like, if I love somebody, I always saw my one parent give everything to the other parent. Absolutely. And that was love. And
that's just
not
the way,
love, by the way.
Yeah. But you don't really know any other, you don't really know any other way. Like, right. You don't really, so that's kind of where Rikki and I come in, where we want to, we want to reassure you while also loving you and giving you self-compassion, but also accountability. Like, those aren't healthy relationships. It's not a healthy relationship when you are trying to save someone else from their own, path of destruction, where I want to come in and I want to save them, and I'm going to love them so hard that they learn to love other people, like I'm going to heal them, and then we can have this amazing relationship. There's a reason that you are potentially attracted to people like that. Maybe that's the way you always felt with your parents. Maybe you always felt like you needed to save them. Maybe you always felt like you needed to, their happiness always came before you. It was always me thinking about how I can figure out how to make them happy.
Which is a very codependent mindset. Yes.
Yeah, it is.
So I also pulled up, because we're all about the Oxford Dictionary today, I pulled up independent. The prefix in means without. And so when we've got independence is without dependence. So when we go too far onto the opposite side of that spectrum, we are without dependency on another. So I'm sure everybody, you might be, or you might know someone who refuses to depend on anyone. They won't ask for help. They don't depend. I don't want to use that word too many times. They won't lean on anyone else for any of their needs.
Absolutely.
Whether that's out of fear or they had a terrible experience in the past. We are definitely not arguing for that kind of overcorrection today. The thing that we're going to be going for is interdependence. So it's not an overfocus on you, and it's not an overfocus on me, that independent thing. This is a focus on we, where both people are important. We care about both people's needs. And I know when I see content like that online, or even when I write about it, I can already hear people's thoughts saying, yeah, that sounds really unrealistic. That's like, does that utopia even exist? Are there people out there who care about each other's needs mutually? And I'm sure you'd agree with me, Jimmy, that yes, there are relationships where both people care as close to equally as you can get about each other's needs and happiness in the relationship.
Yeah. And I would say you really need to find one, or else you're going to be in a world of suffering eventually. And I don't want to be too hard on people, but if the excuses that we give, and it makes sense why we do this, but the excuses that we give, like, well, my partners are never going to do that. Or if I'm talking to a woman, she might say, like, that's just not the way guys are. Like, they're just never. But those are the stories that we create in our head. And then we believe that narrative. And now I'm sure you have evidence to back that up. But when we never challenge those narratives, then we end up getting with someone who takes advantage of you and has, and they're very independent, and that might mean they're very selfish as well, and they kind of just do whatever they want, and you're secondary. Don't think it's a pipe dream to have a partner who cares about your needs just as much as you care about them. And the only caveat to that is sometimes when we have anxious attachment, we care all way too much. So we need to care the healthy amount, and then we need to find a partner that also cares the healthy amount.
Yeah. And I've got some really good advice for folks that are married or in very long-term relationships. Maybe you've got children and you're super dedicated to this person, but you're like, shoot, that's them. They're the selfish person that Rikki and Jimmy are talking about. So any relationship is, the dynamic of the relationship is being created actively by both people in it. And as an overgiver, I want to let you know, listener, that I made my partners more selfish than they actually were. And that was a huge realization for me, because back when I was dating, I was like, gosh, where are all the givers? I want to find another giver who gives as hard as me. And I didn't realize that my overgiving was actually encouraging people to become more selfish, even if they didn't realize what they were doing, right? A good example of that would be, I would find someone and I would date them, and whatever their favorite food was, I would find that out. And that's the restaurant I always wanted to go to. Oh, you love Thai food? I know 18 different Thai places, and these are my 5 favorite. And then at night I would lay in bed and I would go, why are they so selfish? How come they never ask me about what my favorite restaurant is? And I would think that I was with a taker. Even my wonderful husband, Chris, when I first met him, I thought, gosh, he's so selfish. Why did I pick such a selfish person to be with? And I didn't realize that I was literally not putting any of my desires out into the relationship. And I was joyfully diving into everything that he wanted, thinking that he was this super selfish person. So if you're worried that your partner is some kind of selfish monster, remember that you create the dynamic with them, and your overgiving might be contributing to that in a way that you don't realize.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. There's so many examples, and we should probably go through some more of them, of just like codependent behaviors that can get us into trouble, just always thinking about, it's like that type of person where you start dating them and you couldn't care less about rock climbing, but like they're a big
Right.
rock climber, and you're like already buying rock climbing shoes, and you're like,
Yes.
I can't wait to go rock climbing with you. And like, there's an element of like, it's fun to do the things that our partner enjoys, but there's also an element where we can fall into where we're like, I take on that. I don't care about football. I've never watched football, but now my partner loves football, so I'm going to sit there for like 7 hours and just watch football with them. And I get that in a sense, but like, we also have to be very careful, because that can translate into, especially if you have some of the other things that we've talked about, that's a codependent behavior where we're obviously thinking about them. They don't really ask you those questions, do they? What do you like to do? No, they don't know. They're not asking you those questions. So you need to make sure that you're advocating for your side of it as well. Like, hey, I also love to do this,
Yeah. Yeah. Which can be scary for folks who are people pleasers or have codependent tendencies. Sometimes it feels really good for us to point at the other person and say they're really selfish because they don't ask me anything.
Absolutely.
When we're the ones who are saying, hobbies, well, I love football just like you, and then and then we blame them for not being curious about us when we're not offering ourselves up. So don't fall into that trap.
And I want you to be with a curious partner. Don't hear me say that you have to always tell them, like I love the whole, people say like we shouldn't expect people to read our mind, and like there's a part of that that's absolutely true. There's another part of that where it's like, if you love someone, you should be curious about them. Like, that's just a simple. So if you're with a partner and you're like dating them and you're like, they're not curious about me at all, like that should be something that you're paying attention to. It doesn't mean that they're the worst person in the world or they're never going to be a good partner, but it does mean I need to see that. I need to like take pause at that. Like, what, maybe they're not curious. Maybe they have a reason for that, but regardless, that's something that you have to challenge in the relationship. Like, is this person really into me, or am I just hoping to be chosen by them?
Totally. And married couples, don't despair. There are all sorts of, card decks with questions, maybe you've married somebody who really kind of sucks at asking questions. Make a game out of it. Find a game. Sometimes I think my partner would rather get a tooth pulled than sit around and have us ask questions to each other. But there are ways that we've kind of made it fun and practice, and that doesn't mean that
you guys go on those long hikes together, and I'm sure that you talk all kinds of, I'm sure you get into all sorts of conversations.
Yes. We try to go 5 miles every day, and in 5 miles, it's pretty hard to not, you kind of run out of old stories. So eventually questions do come up, and that's a good one for us. Yeah.
Another two more characteristics that I want to mention before I forget. They're going to be at the top of my mind. So let me get them out. You struggle setting any healthy boundaries. Now there's reasons for that, but you should ask yourself, why do I struggle setting boundaries? Maybe one, you don't know what healthy boundaries you're allowed to set. You don't know. I don't know. I don't want to like say the wrong thing. And then they kind of already, maybe you're with a partner that kind of already accuses you of being a little bit too needy, too sensitive. And you're like, if I set a boundary, they're just going to go back to that old trope. Like, I'm too sensitive. It's just me being too sensitive again. And so you need to get real clear on like, what are some boundaries I'm allowed to set in this relationship? Because that's the hallmark of codependent relationships, is you have no idea where you end and they begin.
Mm-hmm.
And this relationship is it's very murky.
Totally. I wrote down one of my audience's biggest questions is it okay for me to want this? And then they have a huge list of things. I run a little Anxious Hearts group on Facebook, and somebody on the group just this morning, I felt so, it was moving and it was relatable because I used to be this person. But she said, I'd been seeing this guy for a couple months, and I finally got the courage to ask, what are we? Like, what's going on here? And he freaked out and blocked me. And now it's been a couple weeks and I'm blocked. And at the bottom of her post, it was like, is it okay for me to want this? And I was like, it's time to make some content right now on what kind of things are okay to want, because wanting clarity in a relationship, or wanting extra hugs, or wanting a text every now and then, there are some, I wrote down some ways that we can tell, is it okay for me to want this or not? And to that poor woman who posted, it's absolutely okay to want some clarity in a relationship. But Jimmy, please add to this list too, because I know you haven't heard this one yet. But here are some reasons why I don't even question the things that I want. I thought that might be helpful. Before I make a request to my partner, I've already thought really hard about why I'm asking for that thing. So back in the day, I never used to think about why I was asking for something. I would ask, so let me think of something kind of unreasonable. I would say, I want you to text me every hour, because I needed to know that a guy was thinking about me like all throughout the day. I had no idea why I wanted that thing. So I'm just throwing requests out based on my emotions, not on any thought of why I actually made that request. But nowadays, I think about things before I ask them. Why do I want this? Do I want this because it aligns with my values? Do I want this because it aligns with the type of relationship that I'm looking for? Do I want this because of a sense of safety that I feel good about giving myself? Do I want this? Do I want this and I care about how it makes my partner feel, right? Like, and when I can answer positively to all those questions, I don't question myself anymore for wanting those things,
I love that. No, part of us on this journey is getting clear. Like, I mean, I still struggle with feeling selfish if I talk about certain needs, or if I talk about desires or wants. But we really have to wrestle with that. As much energy as you put into like their reaction to my requests and desires, and like, if I talk about my needs, is it going to like hurt the relationship? You need to put the exact same amount of energy into like, no, I need to figure out how important this is. Like, I need to, I need to make sure, am I advocating for myself? Am I, we question so much about them. Like, is this going to make, how is this going to cause a reaction out of them? But so often we need to also, question how little we advocate for ourselves.
Totally. And the next point that I had was, another reason that I don't question the things that I want is that I've thought about it and I feel good about the thing. So if somebody leaves me for making that request, or they leave me because they believe that request and they can't do that for me, that's actually a good thing. It's a painful thing, but it's actually a good thing. If I'm saying, hey, guy, the thing that I need in a relationship is a label. I don't feel good about this wishy-washy, like, what are we kind of thing going on. And for me to feel good about being here, I need us to be boyfriend and girlfriend. I need you to introduce me to people as your girlfriend. And they're either like, they either block you, like that poor person on my Facebook group, or they say, man, I understand that you need that, but I can't give that to you. So we're probably going to have to end this. Either one of those options are good, because for the person in the scenario, I want you to be with somebody who is looking for the same type of thing, which is a labeled relationship.
I love the way you worded that. Like this, it's not explained as well, but you just explained it so well. Like, this is what I need in order to feel good about this relationship.
Yep.
So often we don't really know what boundaries are. I don't know. Am I allowed to set boundaries? I don't get it. But like, just think about those things. Like, this is what I need to feel good about this relationship. That probably will give you some good clues about your personal boundaries, which is so important. If we, like I said, if we want to have a good, healthy relationship with another person, like you have to get clear on your personal boundaries, and you really want a partner who wants to know your boundaries. Like if you're in a relationship with somebody and you know, like, I tend to get sexual a little too early and I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm not going to get sexual for whatever you decide. It's up to you. This is your relationship. So if you're like, you know what, I don't know, we're just going to call it 3 months. Okay. I'm going to try this out 3 months. Well, you're dating this person and then you just tell them, and I've done this before where like, hey, I'm just letting you know, cause we're getting kind of serious. Like, I don't get sexual until this time frame. Okay. That's a great boundary. What an amazing boundary. It requires nothing from the other person. I mean, obviously it requires something from them. They can either agree or not, but like, right. But if the relationship is going to continue, this boundary can't be overstepped. So like, I'm just letting you know ahead of time, you don't have to say it, but like, you're essentially saying like, there's no reason for you to press me on this. I've already decided that this is my personal boundary. They can take it or leave it, but but
hey, do you
to
want
be able to say that is so empowering.
Oh, it's so empowering. I was really excited because I have decided, and I wanted to share this with you, Jimmy, too, that instead of the word boundary, I'm going to start using, at least for myself, maybe online too, personal limit, which I love so much. I feel like it's such a better way when people talk about boundaries, like the term's gotten thrown around. Nobody really knows what it means anymore online. And so for me, I love the term personal limit because it highlights the fact that boundaries shouldn't control someone else's actions. You know, personal limit means like when I set those boundaries, they really only have to do with my behavior and actions. And a limit helps me remember it keeps me from doing that overgiving thing. Yeah. And it's about me.
Yeah. Because so often boundaries are like, they get perceived as I'm controlling you.
Right.
A misplaced boundary is, you can't speak to me like that.
Yeah,
well, that's not true. People can speak to you however they want to.
Right.
Now it really, really hurts when an intimate partner speaks to you and refuses to respect you during a discussion. But a boundary is, hey, anytime there's name calling, anytime we start to devolve this a conflict into yelling on either side, I don't think you should tolerate me yelling at you, and I'm not going to tolerate somebody yelling at me. So if those things take place, then I'm going to take a 30-minute break.
Right.
That's a boundary.
I have a personal limit against
I have a personal limit.
Disrespectful
in order to
language.
Feel good about this relationship, I have to take a break when someone calls me a name or whatever the case may be. So
totally. So my third reason for why I don't even question the things that I want in relationships anymore is I'm willing to hear my partner's reason for maybe not wanting to fulfill that request.
Absolutely.
Back in the day, I was not. Like when I couldn't even use the word request because it wasn't a request. It was a demand. Nowadays, they're requests because I know that my partner or whoever I'm asking for a thing from they're allowed to say no, or they're allowed to have something that makes it tough for them to fulfill that. I'm willing to hear that. I'm not trying to control their behavior. It doesn't crush me if they say no. I don't take it as personal evidence that they don't love me or don't care about the relationship. And for that reason, I can ask for literally whatever I want because let's see, if I'm asking for, hey, I would really like to go on a date this Friday night. My world doesn't hang on whether or not they say yes. It's a true request because I know maybe they've already got something going on Friday. Maybe they're really worried that they can't put a good date together and they want to talk to me about that being an obstacle to us going on a date. It makes asking for things really easy and gets rid of the shame when you put the other person's desires into the situation also. You're willing to consider that.
Yeah. To pivot back, I never said my second thing of
Oh
that
yeah, please do.
I needed to
Oh
get
right,
off my
sorry,
head.
go ahead.
And that's that you tend to apologize first. This kind of goes to people pleasing.
Yeah.
A lot of these things are overlap, but you tend to apologize first because obviously you don't want there to be a lot of conflict in the relationship. I don't want to fight. I don't want us to have a bad day. But we have to be very careful because we can slowly but surely, we're tending to their feelings. We're manipulative is not the correct word, but it is the correct word to say we are trying to manipulate the situation so that they don't yell at us, so that they don't get angry, so that they don't have some sort of a reaction. And we have to be very, very careful. Codependent relationships form really slowly, but all of a sudden, once we start checking those boxes where I need to do certain things so that they don't have a negative reaction, or I need to do certain things so they don't feel the consequences of their actions. Maybe they have a really bad gambling problem and you pay some of their debts for them. I mean, codependent relationships can go intimate partner, but also like parent child. I mean, there's all types of different, but really what we're talking about here is more of a intimate partner. But the point is that if you're taking responsibility for their feelings, if you're walking on eggshells and you're trying to keep them happy while sacrificing your own needs, just remember that you deserve a partner who thinks about you as well. Like this is not meant to be a one-sided relationship. So if you feel like you're having to do these things, well, if your excuse is, well, I tell myself like I have to do these things or else what? Like the relationship falls apart, or else they go to jail maybe, or else they get a DUI, or else it gets very dangerous very quickly for you because it's easy for you to take on that caretaker role where I'll just take care of it. But it's not your job to take care of it. And that only leads to you being burnt out and you eventually being resentful, or you just taking on way too much on your shoulders.
Yeah. So I guess I wanted to throw in something kind of unconventional for our episode today. So one of the solutions for codependency, embrace yourselves, folks, because you don't want to hear this, but actually pulling that help back a little bit is actually one of the ways that we start to change the dynamic. And if that sounds scary, it should, because if this is something you struggle with, that's the exact thing that you're trying to avoid, is that pullback and disconnection. But the pullback a little bit, we're not quite as helpful. We're not quite as quick to ask if they need anything. We're not quite as quick to join their bowling league when that's the thing that they love to do. When we pull back just a little bit and turn a little bit more of the attention toward ourselves and what we want, even if that means just cracking open the journal and starting to write about the things that we like and want, that kind of thing is the thing that shifts that dynamic. So this is now talking to the folks who are already in that committed relationship. If you're 1 week or 1 month into dating somebody and they're not showing any reciprocity, by all means run for the hills. But if you're in a long-term marriage or relationship, that pullback is what is really going to help. It helps open that space up so that your partner can go, whoa, I'm kind of feeling like I'm missing them a little bit. Maybe I can ask them a question about how their day is. That's how you invite them into that space, is by redirecting a little of the attention that you're giving to yourself. And yes,
and that's
it is
really hard, obviously. Yeah.
It is very hard. It's, I'm sure you do too, Jimmy, but I still struggle with that because connection and turning toward my partner feels so good. It's like the ultimate for me. I've really had to practice turning toward myself. Sometimes even just walking over to the bed and cracking my journal open feels like a selfish action sometimes, which is crazy because that's such a good thing for me to do for myself. But I'm going to keep on fighting that impulse to 100% of the time turn towards him. And I'm going to slowly creep that percentage up that I'm focusing a little bit on myself. And it does help. I can't even say how many times I've been in here journaling and then he pokes his head in and he's like, hey, want to go for a walk? And I try to remember that's me opening that space up. I'm not there invading his space all the time, trying to control and manipulate what's happening in the relationship. I'm pulling back a little, thinking about what are the thoughts in my own head. And your partner will start to miss you when that space opens up a little bit. This is not advocating for game playing. What I'm saying is we're making the balance, what's the scales? What's the word I'm looking for? We're trying to tip the scales so that things are a little bit more even. The focus is not entirely on the other person. It's also, your focus is also a little bit on you.
Yeah. And even if they don't reciprocate, which some of them might not, like you still have to do that for you. You have to, so often in a relationship, especially long term, if it's a little bit, especially if it has an unhealthy slant, because so many of us can fall into this codependent mindset, especially if we were raised, caretaking or just walking on eggshells to begin with. But we so often don't even ask the question, like, well, what things do I enjoy doing? I don't even do anything for myself anymore. And you start to realize that, like, I spend all this time just caring about them. And, like, you deserve to care about you too. Like you really do have to have a life that's not just about them. And so you were going to have to do that work either way. It doesn't really matter if they reciprocate or not. You have to make sure you have your own life apart from them.
Yes. I try to think too, if the universe were to take my partner away from me for any reason, maybe he fell in love with someone else, or heaven forbid, some sort of accident happens. We're not guaranteed our partner. So if the universe takes my partner away from me for any reason at all, do I still have a life where I care about me and can hold myself up a little bit? Because in the past, I couldn't say yes to that question, But nowadays, I've got my journaling. I've got wonderful friends the connection with whom I regularly maintain. I know bubble bath is such a terrible self-care trope, but I do have a pretty regular routine of caring for myself, which involves exercise and, yes, baths and, doing nice things for my hair and makeup because I enjoy that. I do things like that for myself because it makes my world a little bit less dependent on my partner to be the only thing that makes me happy.
Yeah. And you're not doing it to manipulate him at all. You're doing it for you, like, because you're half of this relationship. Like, I should care about me just as much as I care about him, and so often we don't think about what we would need in this relationship. So the other thing I want to mention real quick is, so we talked about people pleasing, we talked about a lack of boundaries, we talked about over apologizing. So often people that get stuck in this relationship, these types of relationships, they really do struggle with low self-worth. And so I just want to, and all this kind of ties into so much anxious attachment, so much people pleasing. And obviously it overlaps, but I kind of just want to spend a few minutes, like, part of the reason we get into these types of relationships where we just don't really know that we're in this unhealthy dynamic is because, one, we have a fear of abandonment that we don't really have a good grasp on. We kind of think like, I don't know what I would do if I wasn't in this relationship. Like, I don't know who I would be. Sometimes for me at least, sometimes, like, my giving, the reason that I was, like, serving and giving just, like, from a default was because I believed subconsciously maybe that's where my worth and value was. If I'm not serving them, if I'm not giving, like, what, I don't do, maybe that means that I don't really have, what good am I? I'm of no use. So, be very careful thinking that your giving is where your value is found. Be sure that, like, I'm valuable and I'm worthy of kindness and respect. Just baseline. I don't need to give all of myself constantly in order to be worthy of someone giving back to me. That's not the way this works. So
if anybody's looking for extra material on that, if you're like, oh, my self-esteem's not great, I really do feel like I'm only worth something if I'm giving to people, anything written by Kristin Neff, Neff, her area of expertise is self-compassion. And the research has found that self-compassion is the way to self-esteem. So her writing is just like crystal clear. It's so pleasant to read. I just love it. So Kristin Neff. I don't recall the name of her two favorite, my favorite of her books, but check her out. Neff. That's what you want to check out if you're.
Well, one of them is titled Self-Compassion, because I have it, but I haven't read it yet.
Literally just self-compassion. Perfect. Easy. You haven't read that one, Jimmy?
One of them. I have it. I know. I know. I need to crack it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to read so many things, and it's so hard with all these kids running around.
Yeah, I believe it. Can you do Audible?
It's so hard.
Audible's I don't know.
That's what everyone keeps telling me. I think I'm like an old man, because I really struggle with the only time I wear these things is for this, got it. But yeah. But I really do need to start listening to more books on. I'm like an old soul. I have like I like opening the book and like flipping the pages, but but it's hard to play soccer with my kids and read a book. So
I hear you. Yeah, and don't be too hard on yourself too. Not everybody like synthesizes the information coming in through their ear as well as through their eyes. True. You know, people learn in different ways.
I would probably really enjoy audio stuff, but a year from now we'll be having the same conversation and I'll be like, have you tried audiobooks? They're amazing. You know?
Oh no. So, well, you know what though? You need to try Kristin Neff, because she really, those are game changer books for sure. So I'm sure you'll have something to add to this, but so the things that we need to work on, we already talked about understanding our needs. We already talked about reframing boundaries as it's for us and our, protecting ourselves. We need to get better if you're looking
at, we need to get better at assertiveness. Assertiveness is like, sometimes in these types of relationships, we will give and give and give and give, and then we'll get resentful, and then we'll like explode on them, but then we'll just kind of fall right back into the same dynamic, because we will feel guilty for exploding on them, and we'll just want there to be some reconciliation, and so we'll just kind of fall back into the pattern. The last thing I want to say is you have to eventually allow them to experience the consequences of the actions that they choose to do. So you can't. Yeah. So if you're consistently saving them from their consequences, Rikki already touched on this, but that's where it becomes enabling. And is that super scary? Like 100%, that's so scary. Like, what do you want me to just like allow them to drink and drive? You want me to just allow them to like, I can't, all of a sudden you'll start thinking about not just the worst case scenario, but you're like, they're going to get arrested. They're going to go to jail. Like they won't be able, my kids won't be in their life. Like, but we have to be very careful that we are now placing ourselves as the manager of their life. And that is one of the hallmarks of like codependency. So,
well, let's throw an example out too, in the relationship realm, not just the substance abuse realm, but the relationship realm where, okay, I'm not going to call them as often. Now I don't get to talk to them as much. That's terrifying, right? It's not. If you don't call them as much, the natural consequence to that is that they don't get as much of your time. They don't get as much connection with you. And that's the kind of thing that can either open up that space for them to step into it, or it opens up a big gaping hole where you both realize maybe this isn't the kind of relationship that I'm looking for if one person's maintaining all the contact. So that's why that pullback that Jimmy's talking about, that let them kind of let the bad things kind of happen that you're so worried about. Sometimes they can be really revealing, and sometimes they can be really like a catalyst to positive change.
Yeah. And that's so healthy for you to get to the place where you don't just want to be chosen. Everybody wants to be chosen. Everybody wants to be chosen. But it's what you do to get chosen that's very, very important for how, because if you can't think about pulling back a little bit because then they won't choose me, well, they're already not choosing you. So you have to choose you. Like, and I know that's like the dumbest thing to say, but like you're once again, you're putting them above you, and you guys got to be on the same plane here. We can't just, I get it at the beginning of a relationship, like we all put them above, like that makes sense. But once this becomes a pattern, and like Rikki said, like, oh, I'm the only reason we go out is because like I initiate it. we're not saying like, don't do that and then like play games with them so that they want you more. We're just saying appropriately assess whether this is a mutually reciprocal relationship. If it's not, then just ask yourself like, okay, well, what am I going to do about that? It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them. They might just be like oblivious. They might still be a good partner long term, but you have to be able to say, hey, this is like what's going on for me. This is the story I'm telling myself. This is what I need in a relationship. And it's okay if you don't want to do that. I'm just being clear about what I need to feel okay in this relationship, as Rikki would say.
Assertiveness, Jimmy, that you were talking about earlier. That's exactly it. What you just, in that example there, you were being an assertive partner by assertively telling that person, hey, I'm noticing this thing is happening. Dates aren't being scheduled by both parties. Well, do we want to talk about that? Can we do something about that? That doesn't feel great to me. I would like to change things up a little bit. I have another book recommendation, as I always do, but the Assertiveness Handbook, I want to say that was by Douglas Paterson, was another one of my favorites. That's where he's going to teach you to be able to make requests that aren't passive aggressive or demanding or just passive where you don't say anything at all. Assertiveness it's so key to being able to flip that codependency dynamic on its head.
Yeah. And you'll never be assertive when you're too scared about walking on eggshells. So just, I'm not saying that it doesn't make sense why you walk on eggshells. I'm just saying, listen to the excuses that we give ourselves. Well, I can't do that because like that would cause this reaction out of them. That would cause a fight. Okay. But that's not supposed to cause a fight. Like, I hate to tell you that, but like, if you can't be in a relationship where you vulnerably and respectfully talk about what you need to feel okay in the relationship, it's a very dangerous relationship. So,
Absolutely. I have another solution that's uncomfortable because I love the uncomfortable solutions. I don't want to just be throwing out easy, I don't know, very stereotypical really tough internet solutions. Befriend your negative emotions. And everybody's like, ugh, I don't want to touch my negative emotions. That's awful. But a lot of the people pleasing and codependency stuff is because we are terrified of feeling bad things. If I don't call them first, they won't call me and I'll feel lonely. I'll feel like I don't deserve a phone call. Those are negative feelings that you're running from. And that codependent behavior is the kind of thing that you do so that you don't have to feel like that. When I say befriend them, I don't mean like you're a sucker for punishment and you want to feel those things all the time. I mean, stop running from them. When I sit around and I feel the negative feelings that happen when I pull back a little and I don't try to control, those feelings are telling me something about myself. They're telling me something about the relationship. So I bust my journal out, or sometimes I call my sister and I say, okay, I've got some negative stuff happening and I want to talk it out with you, or I want to write it down in my notebook. Negative feelings are a cue that we've got some more research to do. We've got some more figuring out. We've got some more, we want to look closely at our relationship. When you run from them by trying to solve things quickly or insert yourself into their lives, we're not learning anything, Use those negative feelings as a cue that it's time to learn.
Yeah. Or we just continue to people please, or we just, what, I'm not going to bring up I'll just clean the kitchen every night. Fine. Like, I'll just, whatever. Right. They don't want to help. They don't, well, fine, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's those conversations. And I get it that people will say, well, we've had those conversations and they don't care. They don't want to, they don't think cleaning the kitchen is important. So I have to do it. Like, I get it that those can all be very difficult, but the point is that as long as you are able to appropriately be assertive in a respectful, vulnerable way, like, hey, I know we have this conversation a lot, but like, I can't feel good in this relationship if the chores are only seen as my responsibility. I know that you don't care about the kitchen being cleaned, but man, would it mean the world to me? Like, I can't go to bed with a dirty kitchen. I just can't. And like, I get it that sometimes I go a little bit overboard and I want to like mop every night, whatever the case may be, like, whatever your partner's complaint is, like, hey, can we come to some sort of a agreement on, even if we can just divide this up somewhat equally, that would be so much better than just whatever we're in now, where you're kind of spiting me and not doing anything, and I'm over here just building up a bunch of resentment, but I play it off as like, well, I'll just do it because whatever. I know that that's not going to be healthy for our relationship long term. So like, let's talk about it.
And hey, Jimmy, as the least clean partner, as the less clean
partner.
Oh yeah,
I forgot. Yeah.
In that specific example too, you might want to ask your partner, like, what kind of things are getting in the way of you being able to do this? Like, that's something that it's very helpful when my partner, he has lots of ways that he likes the house to be. And instead of just telling me, I need more of this, I need more of this. And for me to go, I can't do that thing, and to look like a terrible, lazy partner who doesn't care about his preferences, I need him to ask me, what kind of things are getting in the way of you doing that? Because for me, it's not that I don't care. It's there are a lot of things getting in the way of me being able to do those things that he wants. So that's right. Turn it into a conversation. If the requests aren't going well, make it more of a conversation than a request or a demand.
Yeah. Because it's both of our jobs to consider the other. Like if I'm like a clean freak, if I'm OCD about stuff, it's my job to consider them and be like, hey, I probably come across as like very overbearing, and I like, I probably get onto you about like that you wiped the counters wrong. So it makes sense why you don't even want to like be in here when we're cleaning. Yeah. So that's our job. That's our work to do. I'm not going to be rude about this.
Right.
Yeah. Like, remember, we're on a team. So
yeah. And that would come up with that question. What's getting in the way of you being able to do that? I could say, you have a very specific way that you want me to wipe the counter, and I get in trouble when I do that. Right. So then it's more of a conversation and less of a directive. Yeah.
But the ability to have that conversation, like in codependent relationships, you cannot have those conversations, at least not in a healthy way. You don't feel safe to bring up your feelings and needs and whatever. Right. So that's another. But
in codependent relationships, we can change that dynamic, right? It's not just a relationship is codependent and it's doomed. We can change that dynamic with the things that we've been talking about in this episode.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. We can all fall into unhealthy dynamics, but it only takes one person to say, I'm not going to participate in this unhealthy dynamic anymore. Yeah. And obviously there's a lot of work involved in that, where, once again, you feel like it's all up to me to like change this relationship. I totally understand that, but you're changing it for the better, and then you're giving them the choice to come along or not. And I know that can be very, very difficult, but it's very important for you to remember that we're not headed in a healthy direction. So it's not like I'm changing this and what if they don't come along? That's so scary. It is so scary, but you know in your bones that this is not what you want long term. So it can't continue anyways. Something has to change, and you know that. So change for the better, invite them in a respectful, vulnerable way, and then do the really hard work of accepting whether or not they want to join you on this healthy journey or not. Wow. Really well said. I like that. Now to totally put you in the hot seat, Jimmy. Me? Yeah. What? Let's do it. Yeah. Since why am I shifting around immediately? Get uncomfortable. Here's the hot seat. I'm uncomfortable. No, I'm just kidding. We both struggle with codependency a little bit. You and I were long time people pleasers, I want to say. Yeah. What part of this episode do you think was the biggest takeaway for you? What's the thing that made you go assertiveness? Okay. Oh, really? Okay, great. Like, can you expound? I'm terribly unassertive. Yeah. Okay. So maybe you would like to check out that book that I recommended. It was a good one. It's short too. It's a workbook. Handbook. I don't have that one. Yeah. I'll send you a link, or maybe we can also put a link in the YouTube show notes. Yeah, notes. Yeah, I love that. Assertiveness is so difficult because, like I said earlier, if you have a partner that sort of, and Emily's not this way now, but she probably didn't invite assertiveness in the beginning of our relationship. If you have a partner that kind of just discourages you from or views or is so independent that when you're assertive about like your needs, they kind of give you flack for it. They're like, why do you need me for that? Or why do you like, you know, or kind of just gives you, here's what's so crazy. Sue Johnson has a blurb about this in her book. And she's like, your partner can like trigger you in the smallest of ways, like just their eye movement. So like if you're vulnerably and respectfully talking to me about like something that you need, which is really difficult for you to do, and I just give you the slightest like I just give you a look like, are you even making sense?
Yeah, you look away for
that
1
is,
second.
oh my gosh, that will make the people pleaser / the anxious attacher / the person with low self-worth, that will make them spiral in their head. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so dumb for bringing this up. I can't even like, they're right. I'm being way too overbearing here. And so that's why it's so important for people like us and to normalize this kind of stuff, just to reassure you and reassure myself that like, if you're doing something in a vulnerable and respectful way, like it is not just okay to be assertive. Like you need to be assertive in a nice way, obviously, but
yes. And I want to say this came from that same book. The more assertive you are, the more often that changes the dynamic of your relationship. It really does, because it can't not, right? You might be faced with somebody who is very independent and who doesn't really like requests that much, but your assertiveness is you stepping into that space, and they can't help but step back a little bit and go, oh, I gotta listen. He's really serious about this. This really apparently means a lot to him. He's not backing down when I give him a little pushback.
Yeah, it's so important. And of course it's really difficult when we're not, when we're in a relationship long term and we feel like, oh man, I've been in this pattern for like a year now or 2 years now. And like, or now 10. I have to slowly start to, now I have to slowly start to like unravel it. Like, of course that's extremely difficult. But it's still really important work.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. It is.
Well, my kids are coming home any minute. So this is all I got, but this was great for me.
Yeah, this was a good one. Check out, if you guys are watching on YouTube, check out I bet it would be in the description, right? In the show notes, we're going to have some links to books, if the books that were mentioned in the episode. And let us know in the comments what characteristics we might have missed. We can include next time. That would be so good. I read all the comments. So if you guys have parts of this that you struggle with, that you would like more information on, let us know. It might make it into future episodes too.
Absolutely. We'll see you in the next one.
See you next time.